Good evening and many thanks for joining us this evening, the 7th of September, the year 2023. Indeed, we have much and more lined up for you, including our top discussion tonight, where we take a look at the hit and misses of the climate summit, the Africa Climate Summit. Now that the curtain has come down, what are some of the reflection, and has it actually met the expectation? That is the discussion we'll be having tonight with my guest, that is Kevin Ruto, the co-founder and executive director of the Community Outreach for Action and Development. That discussion will be coming to you in just a while. But first thing first, our team has been up and running on the ground to bring you up to latest with the development in the world of politics, business, and of course sports. And here is what to expect. Tonight, from climate to food summit, Ruto in Tanzania for the 13th Africa Food System Summit in Dar es Salaam. Give us 10 more days. Interior CS Professor Kithure Kindiki says passport backlog to be cleared within 10 days. Plus, data privacy law breached. Data Commissioner Immaculate Kasait reveals reason behind WildCoin suspension. And ending suicide madness. Kenyatta University, in partnership with Mathare National Hospital, kicks off a campaign to combat suicide cases. Samuel Kelo is our sign language interpreter tonight. My name is Auma Evans. Remember, you can follow this discussion on all of our platforms. That is social media platform. We are live on YouTube at KUTV Kenya. You can tweet us at KUTV_Kenya at Auma Evans. Remember to use the hashtag Primetime News. And now we begin our story in Tanzania, where a day after successful completion of the inaugural Africa Climate Summit in Nairobi, President William Ruto joined other African heads of state for the 13th Africa Food System Summit in Tanzania. The leaders are set to discuss, among other issues, food security and sustainability for the African continent and the world. The summit is being held at the Julius Nyerere International Convention Center in Dar es Salaam, hosted by President Samia Suluhu Hassan. The event commences on the 5th of September, and the curtain is expected to come down on 8th of this month. Now back to Kenya. The Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki today made another impromptu visit to Nyayo House in a fact-finding mission to check the progress of clearance of the passport backlog and other travel document printing. CS Kindiki, who was content with the progress, has expressed confidence that the stockpile will be cleared in two weeks' time. Joseph Oyomo with that report.
A third impromptu visit to Nyayo House in a span of less than a month. Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki is a man on a mission to ensure the stalled process of acquiring passports and other travel documents at Nyayo House is resolved.
Tunaendelea kurekebisha utaratibu ambao tunatumia hapa katika kuwahudumia wananchi. Tumeona ya kwamba tumeongeza ubora wa huduma hapa kwa njia kiasi.
According to Professor Kindiki, the stockpile of unprocessed documents at Nyayo House is set to be fully cleared within the next 2 weeks.
We make sure that even the new applications that are coming in are also processed in such a way that they don't create another backlog after we have cleared with the current backlog. So we hope by the time we clear the backlog in the next 10, 11 days, we will have addressed the crowd issue.
The backlog at Nyayo House had been caused by breakdown of printing machines and corruption, which has led to the arrest of 4 suspects accused of being brokers in the issuance of passports.
Mainly it is management of the caseload that we have, that we are working on, and every day we are getting better and better. In fact, even in between and the 10-11 days from now, we'll also make other administrative changes here, including the numbers of our customer care personnel.
Kindiki also urged applicants to be cautious when seeking services to avoid being duped. In efforts to combat corruption cases, a corruption-free zone signpost has been erected at Nyayo House with an intention of sending a stern warning to corrupt-minded individuals.
That is the issue of the certificates of good conduct and police clearances, which is also getting catastrophic. Once we are aligned here, we have also started engaging the DCI to ensure that also that system is brought back to order.
Professor Kindiki made similar rounds at the facility which houses the Department of Immigration, where citizens get the biometric for their passports last week. Joseph Oyomo, KUTV.
Elsewhere, Data Commissioner Immaculate Kasait has revealed to members of Parliament that the government through her office revoked the license and registration issued to WorldCoin following the company's breach of various data protection laws. Kasait appeared before the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee of the Inquiry on WorldCoin, chaired by Narok West Member of Parliament Gabriel Togoyo. Kasait told the MPs that she issued explicit orders to stop data harvesting by the WorldCoin, orders that the company discarded. She also revealed that the company, also registered by the Office of Data Commissioner, is named Tool for Humanity, but the data collected was moved to WorldCoin, which was not registered data collector and processor. Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has officially launched the Mombasa International Agricultural Exhibition. Gachagua used his address to commend President William Ruto for facilitating the Africa Climate Summit, which offered a platform for the continent's leaders to share perspectives and articulate their stance on Africa's climate situation. Our very own Yvonne Kemuma reports on a day that Gachagua also outlined the government commitment to improve Kenya's agriculture to meet international standards.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has applauded President William Ruto for hosting the inaugural Africa Climate Summit that created a platform for other African leaders to express their position on the climate change situation within the African continent. Speaking in Mombasa County during the inaugural ceremony for the International Agricultural Exhibition on behalf of the President, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua hailed President William Ruto for demonstrating exemplary leadership by bringing these leaders together to provide a clear stance on the issue of climate change.
Kenya is now respected not just in Africa but in the entire world. And we want to say we are proud that African leaders have identified President William Ruto as a leader who will lead this continent to be respected by the rest of the world.
Gachagua emphasized the government's intention to enhance agriculture and shift from subsistence farming by encouraging farmers to engage in commercial agriculture in line with the bottom-up economic model framework.
The government, therefore, remains committed to transforming agriculture from a subsistence to a commercially and globally competitive industry.
The government is also increasing investment in rice, cotton, coffee, beef, leather and dairy farming to enhance food security in the country. According to Gachagua, the government's subsidized farmer program has achieved significant success, benefiting millions of farmers. More farmers are expected to benefit from the next phase of fertilizer distribution.
Within the next 5 years, the interventions through the projects anticipate to increase domestically produced edible oil from the current 80,000 metric tons to 240,000 metric tons. This will lead to a production of 1.5 metric tons of soybean, canola and sunflower seed for use as raw materials in oil extraction.
The agriculture sector contributes to 40% of employment in the country, with over 70% of the population residing in rural areas. Yvonne Kimuma, KUTV.
And First Lady Mama Rachel Ruto has launched the First Lady Mazingira Award. The award targets learners in 89,000 schools in all 47 counties in Kenya, aiming to create a generation of environmentally conscious citizens. Also attending the launch at the Kenyatta International Conference Center, that is KICC here in Nairobi, was Second Lady Dorcas Gachagua and Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu. And also our very own Munene Weru reports, Machogu hinted at introducing climate topics in schools' curricula.
Activities at KICC Nairobi are nowhere near ending, and in another day of the Africa Climate Week, First Lady Mama Rachel Ruto has broken ground on the First Lady Mazingira Award. The award, according to the First Lady, targets learners in over 89,000 schools across the 47 counties in the country, creating a generation of environmentally conscious citizens.
This award will target learners, including special needs students, in over 89,000 public and private primary and secondary schools across all the 47 counties of our great Republic, Kenya.
Mama Rachel Ruto reiterated the gaping opportunities of climate change revolution among children and hyped the Conservation Award in fostering responsibility in the young generation. Second Lady Dorcas Rigathi, on her part, insisted on her consistent stance that women are indispensable in global climate change mitigation efforts.
Our schools are the fertile grounds that will sprout a generation of conservationists and guardians of the planet. Schools are able to nurture a generation of environmentally conscious citizens. Although the largest segment of the population affected by climate change is young people, including learners, they lack a forum to express their opinions and suggested solutions.
It is essential to acknowledge the indispensable role that women play in adaptation of climate-related measures across all nations. Their sheer numbers and their nurturing influence that spans generations make them pivotal agents of climate change.
In attendance was Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu, who lauded the initiative by the First Lady and hinted at introducing climate subjects in school curricula to nurture our generation conscious of the current conversation on climate change.
As part of the curriculum reform, we have ensured that the running areas across the various levels of education cover topics and activities on the environment and climate change. We continue to take steps to build the capacity of our teachers and the trainers on the subject so that they can effectively implement the curriculum.
Momentarily, climate change resolutions have been domiciled in paper and verbal agreements, but the initiative by the First Lady at the same spot the summit took place is a quick jumpstart for climate change efforts within the country. Munene Weru, KUTV.
Right, that story by Munene Weru takes us to our first break here on KUTV Primetime News. Plenty more to follow after the break.
Fashionistas, get ready to level up your style game. Tune in to Fashion Diaries every Monday at 8 p.m. with me, Ashley Asach. From killer heels to slit suits, we've got the trends that will make you shine. Don't be left out. Join us for a fashion-filled adventure.
slip. I need to know right now, have you managed to locate the rebels yet?
No, sir.
So tell me then, what the are you exactly doing down there?
A witness told me that they saw them walking along the beaches hours ago, but I couldn't see them anywhere when I went down there.
We'll send a search party.
Don't worry, we will locate them, sir.
Move it.
We will find them.
Maelfu na maelfu ya wahamiaji wakiwa na watoto kutoka nchi za Amerika ya Kati wanaendelea kuwasili kwenye mpaka kati ya Marekani na Mexico.
But folks, I'm going. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ni habari kutoka pembe zote duniani.
People pass vuguvugu. People pass ni idea.
Sazidi ananyonya, hanyonyi vizuri, anakuwa hayuko comfortable.
Jeshi la Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo linapambana na waasi wa ADF.
Kwa sasa wanatoa wito kwa mashirika, makampuni na vile vituo vya uchukuzi.
Mambo mengi yatakwenda kama yalivyopangwa.
Hapa ni kuna mmoja wa viongozi wa chama cha wavuvi katika eneo hili.
Zaidi tunajaribu kuwapa chanjo ili ina boost ama inanyanyua kinga ya mwili, ndio inaenda kupelekea kupambana na virusi.
Ni duniani leo, Jumatatu mpaka Ijumaa, moja kwa moja kutoka VOA Swahili, Washington DC.
I'm fine. We are coming to you in 30 seconds.
Beautiful. Mic check, correct?
Very correct. Right.
What are some of the ways through which you can develop these skills so that you are comfortably fitting into the job?
You have to put yourself in positions where you are uncomfortable in the sense that you are not clear about what to do.
Because I used to work a corporate job before. So when I left, I happened to visit someone's farm around this area.
So this project is called Security Breach Detector and Readiness Familiarize. It is meant to be used to detect, detonate explosive.
We'll tackle all the tough issues, discuss all the weird moments, and hopefully share a few laughs along the way.
Right, welcome back, and this is where we'll be picking the discussion, our tonight discussion that will be based on the climate change and the summit that was just concluded yesterday. And I have my guest on standby, that is Kevin Ruto, co-founder and executive director of Community Outreach for Action and Development, and he will be joining us via Zoom in just a bit. But let's take this story that will be forming the basis of our discussion tonight. Now, President William Ruto and other African leaders raised up to 3.36 trillion shillings during the Africa Climate Summit held to chart the continent's path for mitigating the impacts of climate change. The African head of states called for urgent reforms of the international finance system in their bid to secure funding for climate adaptation projects. Edward Nyamu tells us more.
The Nairobi Declaration, an outcome of Africa Climate Summit 2023, demands wealthy nations to fulfill their pledge to provide $100 billion in annual climate finance. Passed as a hugely successful historical event, some stakeholders criticized the final resolution, insisting that Africa remains shortchanged in terms of financing.
Men and women who are educated.
According to the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, Africa needs between 23.4 trillion and 49.7 trillion by 2030 for adaptation, where the present yearly flows are only about 2.3 trillion, which they say may be lagging things behind. Africa Development Bank has pledged to inject $25 billion in the financing model. The summit saw foreign and African investors bringing to the table their share, $657.2 billion funding program to unlock Africa's clean energy was one of the major agreements from the Nairobi summit. Britain also announced $8.99 billion for UK-based projects. United Arab Emirates promised to buy $65.7 billion of carbon credit generated in Africa by 2030. In order to safeguard the integrity, transparency, and equity of the market, United States Agency for International Development is contributing $204 million to assist the government of Kenya in developing its carbon market, activation plan, and regulatory and legal framework. The summit mostly focused on calls to unlock investment in clean energy, despite the fact that the 54-nation continent is acutely vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, and there is need for partnership to combat this. Edward Nyamu, KUTV.
Alright, that story by Edward Nyamu now sets the stage, and of course the avenue for this discussion. And joining me via Zoom is Kevin Ruto, the co-founder and executive director of Community Outreach for Action and Development. Asante sana for making time.
Asante sana, glad to be hosted by KUTV this evening.
All right. Before we come to the nitty-gritty, of course, of this, climate summit, let me just get, your sentiment on this. What is your assessment of the climate? Has it met your expectation?
Thank you very much. So I would begin by saying this is the moment that we've been waiting for as Africa. For the last 50 years or so, we've been saying it's time for Africa to arise. For us in the climate space, I think this is the time we would say Africa has a reason. Having Africa for the first time talking in one voice, in one unison, the heads of state coming together in Nairobi from the 1st to the 6th of September this year was a great milestone for Africa. Forget about the its and the misses. The fact that Africa for the first time having their own summit. We've come from Glasgow to Cairo, and now we are in Nairobi to have a proper discussion on how Africa can be able to sit on the same table with the global north is quite a great milestone for Africa. So to answer your question, I am personally satisfied. Being the inaugural meeting, we are on the right track.
All right. Well, having a seat at the table is one thing, and actually, facing the reality on the ground. We're talking about, the matters to do with climate, and the biggest bearer, or rather the biggest brunt of this effect of climate is Africa. And this is actually what necessitated this particular discussion and the summit. According to you, what should have been the agenda now that even as we talk about the hit and the misses?
Thank you very much. So the agenda was well set. Previously, we've had a big problem with the global north being the biggest emitters of carbon. Carbon is one of the biggest sources of climate change, and Africa has been hit the worst because of two reasons. Number one, our budgets have always been very low. We've had serious issues with debt, for example, here in Kenya and even our neighbors. So we've not been able to have enough resources to tackle and mitigate the impacts of climate change. So going by the theme of this year, driving green growth and climate finance, the how do I call it? The theme of the year was well set by the president, who is the chair of the heads of states on the Committee on Climate. And we are very right on track in terms of discussing about financing. And that was the big discussion on the table during the summit.
All right.
And we were able to...
Yes, please proceed.
We were able to prosecute our matter very well as Africa, that going forward, we will be able to sit on the same table with the global north. We've had a problem with our financing architecture in this way. Number one, the cost of financing for us to get the climate mitigation strategy, for example, such as driving the green energy products in wind, in hydro, in e-mobility. We've been getting this financing at a very high rate. Likewise, our counterparts in global north, whom by now everyone knows that they've been emitting a lot more, have been accessing these funds at a very small or cheaper interest rate. So that's the discussion that has been happening in Nairobi this week, and going into COP28, that is a very unified position that Africa will be taking to COP28 in Dubai, that we need to have a unified financing structure.
All right.
And our president, His Excellency William Ruto, has been very, very confident and very, very considerate on this, that we need to have a unified financing structure. And that was a great win during this Africa Climate Summit.
Right. When you talk about the financing, now this comes the aspect of, the 100 billion that was promised 14 years ago. We have had problems in terms of, the countries, the Western countries actually living up to the expectation and, of course, their promise. And now it has been 14 years down the line, still the same conversation. And the question that is arising from this, the climate summit is, where is the commitment? And actually, because there's no any legal binding that binds this, rather than will make the Western countries to actually commit to this, some sort of declaration. So the question is, where is the commitment, and what is the difference this time round? What has changed?
The difference this time round is that we are having a unified voice. 14 years ago, and even recently in Paris 2015, and the unified approach has not been there in Africa. We've been dealt with Africa as 54 different heads of states. This time round, what is different, and on our way to COP28, is that Africa is speaking from a common language, that we need to have a proper financing. And the unified voice that we are talking about right now has been lacking 14 years ago. But this time round, we have a unified voice. We have a solid commitment by the name Nairobi Declaration, and we have a solid commitment under the leadership of His Excellency President William Ruto to put our counterparts in the global north to commit and to walk the talk. I agree with you previously. We've had a lot of talks, and when I began, I talked about COP26 in Glasgow, COP27 in Cairo, and now we are going to COP28. We've had too many meetings, too many discussions, but little of action. But what is different this time around is that Africa is speaking from a unified perspective, and will be negotiating as one continent, not 54 states.
All right. Well, there is some discontent voices among the stakeholders, some which argue that actually when you look, the initial objective of this, the African Climate Summit, actually it was over-promising, and actually they have, according to them, they feel like this particular summit has under-delivered whatever the promise that, and or rather the expectation that many stakeholders were having. Actually, do you think maybe we miss an opportunity to actually seize the moment?
We actually did seize the moment. If at all 3.6 trillion, the amount of money that development partners and investors committed to invest, for example, here in Kenya, in green energy, in transport, e-mobility. Yesterday, even the CS for Transport, Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen, made a commitment that, for example, the issue of the e-mobility, the phase 1 in Thika Road, the phase 2 in Dandora, will be out and will be phased out in about a year or two through this Africa Climate Summit. If that is not a serious commitment, then I don't know what it is. The other investors who made a commitment to wind energy, in hydro energy. So that was a lot of commitment, being an inaugural summit, and even going forward in the declaration of the architecture of financing. A lot of more resources coming in to Africa in two ways. Number one, the issue of carbon credits. Africa getting paid and having a proper structure for us getting carbon credits and having the most emitters paying for that. And number two, the issue of fossil fuels and the global carbon tax. That formed the discussion, and I'm sure when we go to COP28, it will be ratified. So from where I sit, I think we are not here there but we made a lot of progress being an inaugural summit.
All right. Well, and we'll talk about, the carbon credit and all the, the green funding and everything that comes in between. Well, we have seen a lot of things, and now I'm talking about now the declaration, the Nairobi Declaration. Well, this was a document that some might say it will be a game changer, and it will actually put an African continent rather on forefront as far as championing for the agenda as a continent in one unit. Well, this declaration that people talks about it. Of course, we had a few things that deals with, the finance and how they want actually the issues to do with climate to be handled. Do you think this is now the silver bullet that was missing?
Yes, it is. Just to bring it into context, the precursor to the African Climate Summit was the Africa Youth Climate Assembly. 65% of the Africa's population is young people. That is a very, very serious asset for Africa's continent to bring to an action to the climate solutions that we have all been yearning for. Nairobi Declaration put the young people at the center of this implementation in number one, mitigation strategies, adaptation strategies, and climate resilient strategies. Nairobi Declaration is unique because of two reasons. Number one, it is young people centered. That is number one. Number two, it is a commitment by Africa, for Africa, with Africans at the center of the stage. So as we head into the next step, the next frontier of having even, a unified, financing structure, we have a feeling that young people, their lives will improve. We will be able to have, sufficient financing for the immense, solutions, the climate solutions that the young people do have. And going forward, we will have one voice for Africa and with Africa.
All right, hold on. That discussion, of course, we'll be having it after this short break. We are taking a short break and we'll be back with this, the discussion, the hit and misses now that the Climate Summit, the 2023 Africa Climate Summit, the first inaugural of its kind, actually, it was concluded yesterday, and there is some, discontent voices, and some even hail the summit as one of the gamestone as far as the fight for this climate, justice is concerned in terms of Africa. Now, we take this short break. When we come back, plenty more to follow.
Ukiwa na mwenzako fulani amekufanyia jambo fulani, yule bwana hana maana yule, mimi nilimfanyia kadhaa, mimi nikamfanyia kadhaa, mimi nikamfanyia kadhaa, itakusaidia na nini wewe? Bali ukianza kuzungumza kutaka kujua wema uliowafanyia watu, Mwenyezi Mungu anakufutia yale mema yote, anayafuta pale. Kwa sababu gani? Wewe unataka kiburi, unataka kuonekana, unataka kushow off kwamba wewe ulikuwa ukisaidia fulani, wewe ulikuwa ukifanya hivi. Wacha iwe ni siri yako. Ya Nabii salam alayka, ya Rasul salam alayka, ya Habib salam.
Leo tutakuwa tunatengeneza ndovu, yani tutakuwa tunafanya mambo mubashara kabisa hapa kwenye mitindo ya Kipwani. Nami nimeona kwa macho. Nimeona kwa macho.
Baada ya kutafuta kazi, tunaweza kuanzisha miradi yetu ambayo ingetusaidia
kubadilisha maisha ya wazazi wetu.
Kwa vijana wenzangu, wengi hawana kazi, lakini ikiwa sisi wenyewe tutajiamini, tunaweza kujiajiri wenyewe.
Afrika kwa kweli tuna mahitaji ambayo ukiyasuluhisha unaweza kuathiri watu kwenye bara hili
bila woga. Watu huwa na uzalishaji zaidi, wanajawa na ujasiri, wanakuwa wabunifu na wanakuwa wenye maarifa.
Niliamua kuacha kazi, hata kama sitafanikiwa, nitakuwa nimejaribu, nitakuwa najua haiwezekani.
Hakuna kitu cha ajabu hapa. Kila anayepata ufanisi hufanya kazi usiku na mchana.
Kitu kitakusukuma na kuwezesha kupata maarifa ambayo hukuwa nayo.
Tunajaribu kutengeneza kitu kitakachopita mipaka ya nchi hii.
Ikiwa unataka kubadilisha ulimwengu, anza na nyumbani.
We are all seeing the impacts of climate change. In Kenya, for example, the frequency of the floods is becoming more and worse. The amount of people and livestock we are losing.
The level we need to go is a level where the normal mwananchi and also the government stakeholders can uptake these solutions.
Those small acts multiplied by millions of us will help make a difference in the world at the end of the day.
It's just a slight behavior change that we need, and you'll find that it serves us a bit more than you put in. And that's the goal. We want to live a better world than we found. Because at the rate we are going, it's dire.
We will secure the planet for future generations.
Right, welcome back, and the discussion still continues. Remember, we are talking about the hit and misses of the African Climate Summit, the first inaugural of its kind here in Africa, and Nairobi actually play host to this particular, the 2023 summit. And I've been talking to Kevin Ruto, the co-founder and of course executive director of community outreach for action and development. And Kevin, you're still talking about the Nairobi Declaration. What are some of the things that actually stand out for you in this Nairobi Declaration?
Very well. So 3 things stood out for me. The integral role of the youth to support the work on climate change. We applaud His Excellency President William Ruto for supporting the youth, and even him by coming to open the youth event shows how much the youth are very important, not just in Kenya, but Africa as a whole. We have a very, very huge population of young people in Africa who have no work. And actually, climate change is offering a huge opportunity for young people to create green jobs, to have green investment opportunities, and to have a lot of climate-related solutions that can offer jobs for young people. So that really stood out for me and for Africa, young people, and the future that Africa has to have a potential to generate about 45 to 50% of employment opportunities in the climate change sector. Number 2, what stood out for me is the investment solutions that is coming into Africa and the opportunities that will open Africa to the world. Africa has immense potential in renewable energy and natural resources that are yet to be tapped. Number 2, Africa has a huge capacity in the green space that no other part of the world has. And finally, number 3, Africa could be possibly effectively the solution to the climate change problem that we are having in this world. Those are the three things that stood out for me in this Africa Climate Summit.
Well, talking about the opportunities that are available out there for youths, and this now begs the question, like, how can actually youth, of course, tap into these available spaces and opportunity to actually now shift the narrative and transform this climate action?
The youth, or rather the young people of Africa, has immense opportunity in this climate change space. Talk about mitigation and adaptation strategies that we are doing even in my organization, Community Outreach for Action and Development. The environmental conservation component, the training and advocacy component, the young people, coming together into groups and putting government into action to put money in green jobs, to have the green work that we are doing, for example, in training young people to have tree nurseries at the village level. That has really worked for us for the last a year or so, to create jobs to over 100 people in the North Rift. Going into green energy, going into wind energy, there's a lot of immense potential that is coming in for the youth in the climate change sector.
All right. Well, now that we are heading to COP28, and we are still on the declaration, the Nairobi Declaration. Now, how has it actually amplified the African voice now heading to this COP28 meeting that will be held later on in just a couple of months right now? How has it amplified the African voice as far as climate is concerned?
African Climate Summit 2023 has amplified our road to COP28 in two ways. Number one, Africa will be coming into the table as one continent. We will be negotiating as one people, from Morocco to South Africa, from Kenya to Nigeria. We will negotiate as Africa. Previously, we've been going as 54 continents, or rather, the economic blocks, whether it's EAC, whether it is SADC, whether it is ECOWAS. But this time round, we are going as an Africa as a whole. Number two, we will be having, our own commitment on the table. Previously, that discussion has not been public. The heads of states have been meeting as the Committee of Climate Change. But this time round, a unity of nations have been meeting, and I am sure even the other developed countries are aware, and they were in Nairobi, and they also made a commitment to support Africa as a developing country going into COP28 and bring more investments to Africa in green growth energy, and the model of financing that is equal for all of us. So we are going to COP28 as equal partners, not just as the global north or the global south. We are going as one united continent, ready to tackle and mitigate the effects of climate change as equals.
All right. When you talk about, the shaping, or rather shaping the discussion into one narrative, and Africa has been, very clear in terms of their objective and actually what they want to achieve. And one of the areas that has been a bone of contention is the issue of carbon credit. Well, we have had, some complaints from African head of states, some that matter to do, they complain about the unfairness that they have the resources that the world needs, but at the same time, it is the buyer who actually dictates the terms of sale and even sets the standard. Well, this, the proposal now that they want to shift the narrative and actually have a say as far as carbon credit is concerned. How will you, chip in your views in this particular discussion, and just how attainable is it?
Let's state the facts. Africa has been the least contributor in terms of carbon emissions, yet we suffer the most of the devastating effects of climate change. Talk of drought, talk of rainfall, the very uneven patterns of rainfall that we have right now in Kenya and Africa as a whole. So the question of carbon credits and the global carbon tax was a very, very pertinent question during this summit. And even going forward, I agree it is a big, big challenge, but we have to come to the table and agree and say, you emit more, you need to pay more. Africa emits less, and we are yet to get even to, a percentage of what, the global north emits. Yet, of course, we understand that, it's the private sector making a lot of work in the global north in terms of the industries and so forth. And there is no incentive per se to do so. But we will be putting those governments in check as Africa and tell them the truth that indeed it's time for us as part of a very good, financial architecture to pay more.
Sorry to cut you short, but when you say you will be putting, these countries into check, this it's a bit confusing because there is no any legal, agreement or rather any bounding that will bind this particular agreement. It actually depends on the goodwill from these countries. So this now begs the question, even as we, look forward for actually more from accountability from these more countries that actually, pollute the environment more than the rest of African states. Well, when you look at, the accountability question, how will Africa actually manage this? Because if you are depending on the goodwill, then where is the accountability in part of this?
But I agree with you that, as we begin, the accountability is a challenge for Africa as a developing country. However, there is unity in, there is strength in unity. Previously, we've been not able to make that push because, we've been on our own, as the different countries of Africa. But this time round, we are negotiating as one continent with pretty good resources. The private sector of the global north have a huge interest in Africa, and that is where the debate is in terms of, commitment and in terms of the kind of the investments that they are making in Africa.
All right.
I'm sure that will be great for us.
All right. While talking about negotiating, this will serve even as your closing remark. There is this carbon credit bill, the 2023 bill that is being proposed. Well, if adopted, of course, it will establish, regulator and carbon trading benefit authority to regulate carbon credit trading business that will put Kenya on a global map as one of the market leaders in carbon trade. Well, give me your thoughts on this particular, bill that is being proposed, even as we wind up this discussion.
Carbon credits bill is a step in the right direction to support, the climate mitigation measures here in Kenya. We are making really tremendous progress on the same. The carbon credits will be able to help, people who are willing to support the country and Africa at large to absorb, the carbon emissions that is in the air. Carbon credits will be able to incentivize the farmer who is across Kenya and is able to support, the government of Kenya and Kenya at large absorb carbon.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. That is Kevin Ruto, co-founder and executive director of Community Outreach for Action and Development. Asante sana for making time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Now we take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be diving into other stories, including our sports news.
You need to look for high quality friends.
I'm from Kingston, Jamaica, Portmore. That's my village.
Kanga tu chini hapo ukinyethia ukikatia mademu akipita.
Sina pesa saa hii, nimekuja kukopesa choo.
Jakub Petri. I'm Associate Professor in the Institute of Philosophy of Jagiellonian University in Krakow, Poland. And I'm the main coordinator of the Cafe project, which is being here hosted by Kenyatta University.
My name is Eva Hutoba. I am a project manager in this consortium. Keep watching cutting-edge research at Kenyatta University Television.
Right, welcome back. Now, days before World Suicide Prevention Day, which is celebrated annually on the 10th day of September, Kenyatta University, in partnership with Mathare National Hospital, has kicked off a campaign aimed at combating suicide. At least 700,000 cases of suicide are reported annually around the world, with young people between the age of 15 to 29 years forming the bulk of reported deaths. Joseph Case attended the campaign and filed this report.
According to a World Health Organization report, it is estimated that more than 700,000 suicides are registered globally every year. Creating hope through action is the training theme for the World Suicide Prevention Day from 2021 to 2023, a theme that serves as a reminder that suicide is always not the only option and that action is a viable way of preventing suicide. Kenyatta University, in partnership with Mathare National Hospital, have already kick-started campaigns aimed at combating suicides, with the main focus being on young people aged 15 to 29 years. Mathare National Hospital Chief Executive Officer Dr. Julius Ogato says that in Kenya, 6 or 7 out of 100 people lose their lives through self-harm, and that suicide is among the largest causes of death globally.
6 to 7 out of 100,000 people lose their life through self-harm. This is too big a number. That is why we are here to talk to you, that whenever you see a friend, whenever you see a neighbor, whenever you yourself are feeling like that, kindly come for help and you will get it. And I want to tell you, as Mathare Hospital, we have helped very many people. And our business is simple: healing minds and restoring lives.
Kenyatta University Vice Chancellor Professor Paul Wainaina, in his speech read by Professor Michael Gesheru, has said that Kenyatta University is committed to working with partners to address the challenges that lead to suicide among young people through counseling sessions and seminars.
Several activities have been lined up, including over the next 2 days. Some of these activities are like contact tents at the site of the university, like the main gate, shopping center, and Nyayo gate. We have tents around there that will be talking and guiding our students and members of our community. Psychology seminars at BSSC, room 14.
According to a World Health Organization research, social media influence is among the factors that have greatly contributed to suicide. Other main causes include peer pressure and drugs. Figure this: 700,000 cases of suicide are reported per year, most of those affected being young people between the ages of 15 to 29 years. In short, people who are still building the foundation of their lives. It calls for action from organizations like Mathare National Hospital and higher learning institutions like Kenyatta University to combat this vice and ensure that every young person feels part of this society. Joseph Kess for Kutv, Kenyatta University.
Now it's time for sporty action. Kenyatta University men's football team, popularly known as Hardnuts FC, hosted Football Kenya Federation Premier League side Bidco United in a friendly match at the Kenyatta University grounds as they continue to prepare for the World University Games to be held on 21st to 31st of October in China.
Kenyatta University men's football team Hardnuts FC,
played host to Kenya Premier League side Bidco United in a string of friendly matches meant to prepare Hardnuts for the upcoming World University Games. Bidco United were eventual 2-0 winners, but Hardnuts FC assistant coach Joseph Ndungu has said that the match was a learning experience for his young players against a strong opposition.
Ukiangalia first half we got a lot of chances. We didn't convert our chances, but them they get 2 chances and we convert. So I think we need to improve in scoring and also going forward.
Joseph Ndungu also added that his team will make improvements especially in the attacking phase so as to score more goals as they will face tough opponents in the World University Games.
So I think tukicheza hiyo friendly pia itatupatia whatever we have seen today, nadhani tuta correct our mistake. We are going to win that on Saturday.
Kenyatta University's football team Hardnuts FC hosted Bidco United in an epic friendly match that ended 2-0 in favor of Bidco United. Kenyatta University will represent Africa in the International Universities Football Games to be held in Jiangxing, China from the 21st October to the 31st October this year. Njama Gikomo, KUTV.
All right, well, thank you, Njama, for that. Now the defending U.S. Open champion Carlos Alcaraz stormed to the semifinals of the U.S. Open after defeating Germany's Alexander Zverev by 3 sets of 6-3, 6-2, and 6-4 consecutively in an epic... Alright, well, before we call it a day, news in just Harambee Stars have won their friendly match against Qatar 2-1, and actually the team will be jetting back into the country tomorrow ahead of their planned friendly matches with South Sudan that will be staged on 12th of September. Well, that's a wrap for us from this part. Well, we wish you all the best and we thank you so much for always tuning in. My name is Auma Evans. Samuel Kelo has been our sign language interpreter tonight. Until next time, goodbye and do have a lovely night.